Welcome to the Gyaff, Sister Marie Harper. I just want to start by telling you, this, since I started this, and I'm not just saying this for the program, but you have been one of my biggest anticipated people simply because
Wow.
you're such an inspiration to me, and I just feel like some of my the most formative years of my life were shaped by your tutelage and guidance, and the institution you have built in Guyana. So I just want to thank you so much for coming here, and I'm so excited to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, but let me just say this is a great pleasure for me for having had something to do with your formation, as you said, and as well as Vicky's. And I've had some very good recollections of you, both of you. So here we are, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially, and I think it's quite timely now, given your upcoming retirement. I'm secretly hoping that you're pulling a Michael Jordan and you're gonna make a comeback.
Well, not quite,
No,
not quite.
okay.
But I hope to continue to serve there whenever I'm needed. But more particularly, I've been asked to serve on the board
Okay.
of directors. So that will enable some influence on the direction of the school for sure, and hopefully to keep the vision in mind.
I just want to ask you, like, how do you feel though about the retirement? I know it's been about 25 years with
Exactly.
Marian Academy.
Mhm.
So, you know, after investing so much of your time and your effort, I know it's been blood, sweat, and tears on your end. I can attest to that. How do you feel moving on to the next chapter?
Well, I'm actually, I feel a sense of relief. Actually, it was rather late in the past term when things seemed like it would happen. And when I finally spoke with the chair of the board about going forward, after I left the office, I felt a sense of relief. I felt relieved after 25 years. It's a lot of history. It's a lot of all that we did to make that school what it is. And I had been thinking about it a long time, about a day will come when I will step back. And interestingly enough, I didn't want to hold on. My greatest worry was passing on the baton and have a succession set up. Someone whom I could trust to carry the vision. Because let me say to you, it's not just about teaching mathematics and chemistry and physics and geography, etc. It is about formation of young persons. And that is integral in the whole education process, ought to be integral in the whole education process. And for me, and for the religious congregation I belong to, Ursulines, we see education for the sake of evangelization. And don't get me that I'm getting very scriptural on you or anything. When we say for the sake of evangelization, what is evangelization? Good news. Good news, happiness, joy, peace, goodness. And if one should read the life of Jesus Christ, you would see the values that he fostered among his disciples. And those are the same values I would want to encourage because they're really goodness, compassion, kindness, care, love, honesty, truthfulness. All of those values make us human. And if those values can't be passed on to one generation after next, where are we heading, you know? So that's very important to me in the process of education.
Yeah.
And I came to Guyana for no other reason but for that. All the skills and knowledge, definitely. We want to see students succeed at the national grade 6. We want to see them succeed at the CXC and the CAPE examinations. But if that's all they're leaving with, I would feel I wasted time. They could have gotten it anywhere else.
Yeah, no, that and I totally agree with you, and to that point, I think that being an alumni at Marian myself, I always thought that, you know, I got the most rounded education. You know, it was one thing to be able to study all the subjects and explore the academic part of it, but just the foundational building of character and you know these values that you talk about were the biggest things to me, and I think that's why so many people are attracted to the school. And it's interesting that you said that, you know, as it relates to evangelization. That's something I actually didn't even really think. I never looked at it that way.
Because it was happening to you,
Yeah.
but it's not something that you need to think about, and you know, it's a process, as I said, of formation, and that is just built into the thing. It's like what gives flavoring to whatever you're having. You're having a beverage, but it has a particular flavor, and that is the flavor we put in, without overdoing it, to make that difference.
Yeah.
And so to produce young people like yourself who, you know, care not just for your financial gain or just care to succeed, to make a name and a fame, but, you know, you will to make an impact, to make a difference, yes, but how is the question? You know, your videos, it's all there for helping others, influencing in a positive way. Whether it is this podcast or whether it is on the environment that you have spent a lot of time in, and really helping people to understand and see a different part of Guyana and so on. And this is all it's all a part of that, all a part of living the good life.
Yeah. Like definitely with purpose. Yeah, no, I'm very grateful to be able to do that. I just want to quickly, you know, because a lot of people, I know there are going to be a lot of people from Marian listening into this, but for the people who aren't Marian alum, I just kind of want to have a brief background on you. So
Sure.
if people couldn't tell, you're from Jamaica, you're from St. Andrews.
Correct.
My family's from Falmouth.
Yeah, I did know that. I did know of that while
Yeah,
you were
I
in
think we were
school.
on a flight to Jamaica one time when we
Yes.
ran into each other, which was nice. And they also don't know that you were quite an athlete back in the day. You were a netball captain. You did study 20th century popular dance. I read a beautiful article on you written by Miranda LaRose.
Yeah.
Recently in celebration of your 25th year, and it was just so interesting to learn the things about you that I didn't know. But what age did you decide to sort of pursue theology? I would assume that it wasn't something you decided very early on in life.
Oh no, it wasn't very early. If I delve into a little bit of my religious formation, somewhere in my mind I felt I didn't want to be married. Marriage is good. Marriage is good. It's great. It's a way. It's a way to the good life. But there are different ways for each of us. Okay. And for me, I didn't feel marriage was a thing for me. So as a teenager, okay, it seemed like the way it should be. People have these expectations. But I felt like there was something deeper for me, something else calling me. And to tell you the truth, I kept avoiding all these little promptings. I kept avoiding them. I studied, I did this, it's there. The invitations I received to participate in church activities, the invitation to do this, do that, is there. Anyway, finally, I took up the courage to speak to an Ursuline sister who was at the church where I attended. And they were going on a retreat to Montego Bay. Nice place, okay.
Beautiful.
Would I like to go to Montego Bay and with them and just to assist them with transportation? By the way, in those days, I also drove a Mini.
Nice.
And in those days, I also speeded. I don't speed now.
Okay.
So, okay, I'm taking these sisters to Montego Bay, and I'm free to do what I like to do. Mm-hmm. That's what they told me. Free to do what you like to do. Go to the beach, enjoy, and so on. So I thought it was a nice way to get a little rest and relaxation, and I took them. And I went accommodations free in a tourist resort. What else you could want? So I went with them. But then there was something saying, why don't you join them for this retreat? And I'm like, join them for a retreat? No, not at all. But then it was more and more. And then I thought, let me see what these people are around about. So I joined them for the retreat. And when I was coming closer to the end of the retreat, they were saying, you're free to talk to the priest, what's happening inside you, and so on. So I thought I'd do that. And so I was sharing with him, and he finally said to me, so what's preventing you from entering religious life? And I thought, nothing. And like the penny dropped. Here was somebody seeing something else in me that other people had been prompting me to do all the time, and I was avoiding it. And then I began to pray about that, and I thought about it seriously. And then eventually, I spoke with the Ursulines, and I began to receive spiritual direction. And one thing led to another. So after my religious formation per se, I thought, it would be good to delve a bit more in theology, because people are going to expect more of you as a religious sister. So after I had returned from England for my initial formation, and I'd been in Barbados as deputy head and then acting head principal for the school, an all-girls school. And I was going to be transferred to Jamaica, and I thought, they have a theological college there, so why don't I go and do theology? And so that's how I did that degree.
Yeah, wow.
And it also enabled me at that time to do a year of pastoral theology, which also would enable me to assist with counseling. And that has put me in a very good place in my work as an educator, because I have not only children coming to me, but parents, coming to say difficulties they're experiencing. You've learned a level of confidentiality, and all that goes with that. And so I can shift my role from being an educator to some counseling. I don't take on counseling, don't misunderstand me.
Yeah.
But that has been taught to me, the skills of how to assist people in that area.
Sorry, I just want to interject quickly. I do want to just attest to that as well, because you're saying all of this, and I'm getting some flashbacks, because I remember having many a conversation with you in your office, both while I was a student and after.
Yes.
And we just really hit some connections that I could totally, I really felt safe and open to doing that. And I think that practice is very rare in our society. It's just to be able to confide and how you handle it with grace. So yeah, it's interesting that theology was able to give you that level of compassion and understanding, and for people to have that confidence in you. I guess you do find it does come in handy working with a school when you're guiding children as well.
Of course, very much so.
Yeah. You got your you studied theology, and then how did from there did you end up back in Guyana of all places?
I actually went to Venezuela to work.
Okay.
And
was this in an educational capacity?
Yes. We have a very big school there, Academy Mary C. All girls.
Okay.
Yeah, all girls. When I went there must have had close to 1,000 girls.
Oh, no way.
Can you imagine a campus with all these girls?
Yeah.
Beautiful, though. And while I was there, prior to going there was a meeting held in Guyana, and I was a part of that meeting. In fact, I was secretary, taking notes, minutes, etc., where the invitation to religious to meet to discuss the return of Catholic education in Guyana. And at the time, I was tasked with making a statement to the effect that we valued education, we saw it as important, but we didn't have the kind of money, we didn't have personnel to really invest in a school, but we'd be willing to assist in whatever way, because we believe education is valuable and important. And so there were many other religious congregations there, Religious Sisters of Mercy, the Carmelite, the Jesuit priests, the diocesan priests, and so on, and other interested individuals. And I must mention here, I don't know how she'll feel about that, but Roxana Kewal, she was very interested in Catholic education, and she had encouraged it. And I think she was the one who called the gathering together. So we had that dialogue, and then I went back to Venezuela, because I was there then. And we encouraged a task force to do some investigation as to persons who would be interested in Catholic education, one, and two, in what level. And they did a feasibility study and came up with that persons wanted their children to be in one place from nursery directly through secondary. And so they began to look around for a place, and all that went with that. And then, so this was February of that year of the meeting. And by May, they had made such movement that they located a place, and they had done the feasibility study, found out how many persons were interested, etc. And now they were seeking a principal.
Wow.
So
all in a matter of months.
Yep. And so I was at a meeting again in Venezuela when, in those days, we had fax, 25 years ago.
Yeah, hard to believe.
Not WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Fax came asking if there is a chance at a teacher to be a principal, somebody who would take over the role as a principal. And I'm in this meeting, and the eyes just went, stop on me. So I said, why are you all looking at me? Why? Nobody commented. And so the following day, I attended an assembly in the school, and the children stood up and they sang the national anthem. And then they they sang the school song. And I found myself mentally thinking, when you go to Guyana, what is the national anthem? When you go to Guyana, what would be the school song? And then I just sort of said to myself, why are you thinking that way? You're not going to Guyana. And then afterwards, I shared it with the sisters, and they said, well, what is that saying to you?
Yeah.
And I thought for a little, and I said, maybe I'm supposed to go to Guyana. I tell them yes, I'll come. Because already I'd had experience in Jamaica as vice principal there in an all-boys school.
Which you were at for about 13 years, right?
Yep. And I was in Barbados for, I think, 3 years, or it was 4. It's a little vague there. First acting principal, vice principal, and then acting principal. And then I was in Caracas just for 2 years, but not as principal or anything like that, just a regular classroom teacher.
Yeah.
So I had some experience behind me in a boys' school and in a girls' school. So I came not totally ignorant of the workings of, leadership at that level. But when I came, I tell you the truth, Alex, I was a bit disappointed when I look at the building.
Yeah. Well, we used to call it the cow shed.
No.
Not the cow shed.
The Legion building.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then at the time they had a softball club.
Okay.
And those 2 buildings are going to be used. They're separate, which is now the Ministry of Education grounds, sports complex.
Okay.
And we had all of that, and the buildings weren't inviting nor encouraging. The only nice thing about it was the huge field.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started there, but I realized we could not have stayed there. From the comfort level was one, and secondly, people had just been applying to come as if something good was happening here. That was very encouraging.
Yeah.
And so we began to investigate places, and I think the Lord had his hand in all of this, because to just point out right in front of your eyes is a nice space.
Yeah.
And it was Bishop Singh, God rest his soul, who had that grounds for men's guild, and it wasn't so much used. Police used to come over there and train, and people used to go and fly kites, and kids used to go over there and play cricket.
This area you're referring to is
it the present location?
When it was just totally empty. You see, sorry, I don't even remember at that point.
No, you were a baby.
Yeah.
Or not even born yet. Except a little house, which was the guild club.
Yeah.
And a little gazebo, little summer house type thing. And that was all on the grounds. And a rickety bridge.
Yeah.
You were afraid to walk on it to get across.
That's just to get across from Carifesta.
Yeah, across to it, across that waterway.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was located. We had all the necessary permissions, etc. History will reveal we had obstacles, but we overcame those obstacles, and we built in phases. We began secondary and the primary and the administrative block that we currently occupy. And then we put in the hall, that big assembly hall. Then we moved to the secondary department. But prior to that, we had to put up a temporary building, which you referred to earlier on that same location. Mm-hmm. And that was accommodating the overflow of the secondary students.
I remember when I just moved into the school, they were now revamping that slightly. I just want to interject quickly because you're saying so many things and I have so many questions. When you brought this idea, or when they brought the idea of a Catholic school to Guyana, the pace at which they everybody reconvened and made it happen in a couple of months. You think, is that testament to the religious community here that got that done? Because if you were doing that for just a private school, I reckon it would have taken a bit more time.
I think the religious influence had a lot. I mean, if you're committed to something,
Yeah.
when you're committed to something, you're going to go for it. You're going to go for it. And you're going to find the ways and the means to get there. And as Roxana Kewal says all the time without hesitation, God had a hand in it.
Yeah.
And she said, she uses the word miracle. She said it is a miracle. Some people believe that miracles don't happen because it expects some kind of, horrendous thing, like a dead man being raised to life or something.
Yeah.
Well, that's a miracle too. But miracles are happening before our eyes, and we don't really even see that that's a miracle.
Yeah.
You might, sitting and chatting with a past student like you, it's also a miracle, that I had some doing in your education, and I'm from a completely different country. How did this all happen,
It's very, very humbling, to be honest. So do you think also that, why do you think, though, that there was such a need, or so many people, especially in the non-religiously committal or directly, involved in religious institutions, were so interested in a Catholic school?
Yes. Well, number one, remember if you look back at history, the churches or religious groups had a big influence on education. That's where it started. In schools, if you go way back to 1840s, after emancipation, it was all these groups that came together to start education, not only in Guyana, throughout the Caribbean. And in the 70s, history will show that all schools were nationalized. All of these schools. And taken over by the state. Because remember, those schools were not being supported by any financial assistance except that from the parents who paid the fees to keep their children. So to a certain extent, you had to have some money to go to that school. Well, any politician or any person thinking about people might say, no, we want everybody in school, not only those who can pay it. So we're going to nationalize. Maybe an excellent vision. But could you manage it? Was the state able to take it over? Now, other countries did other things. Jamaica, for example, Trinidad, for example, they never went taking over those schools. They decided to help those schools. Barbados as well. Decided to help those schools financially so the parents can pay less fees. And the children who sit the national exams at grade 6, for example, they are able to get a place in these high schools. Famous Campion College in Jamaica, Immaculate Conception, St. Andrew High, name those schools. They're all supported by the government. The government pays the teachers, pays for the facilities. The buildings are still owned by the respective religious congregations, groups, etc. And maybe all these religious congregations would be totally responsible for, would be finding the leadership in the school, the head.
Yeah.
And they employ teachers from the cadre of teachers in the country. They don't train them only for government school. They train them for all schools and so on.
Yeah.
So it was the approach. So going back to why the Catholics, why the Catholics then were saying we need to have schools because of what had been happening in the educational sector at the time. And I would invite anybody to go and read history to see that. And let me say, we were not the first school to begin. There are 3 other private schools who started before us.
Yes.
Shortly before us.
One of which I attended before coming over, before jumping ship.
Okay.
That's interesting. Not to get too critical, but what do you think were the shortcomings in state-run institutions that maybe private institutions could have offered? Was it capacity or just the type of education? What would you say?
Well, they had curriculum because it's the same curriculum we use with a difference.
Yeah.
They had all of those. It was a commitment on the part of the persons in the institution. When people start to begin to say, it's government things, and they don't feel like they have a share they're not a stakeholder in that institution or whatever it is.
Yeah.
We don't invest ourselves in it as we ought to. Because the value of just saying, I will do the best I'm able to do with total commitment might not be there.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it was not there in many, many persons. I mean, I could name people I came to Guyana and saw who were totally committed to the education system and did the job in wherever they were. So I wouldn't like anybody to hear me misunderstand that. But I am saying when you do not feel you're a part of the institution, you're not a stakeholder, you very often take a different approach to it.
Absolutely.
And if leadership information is top down all the time, you must have good leadership. But if it's always just telling you what to do, it might not be as you would do if you were helping to shape the system.
And to that point, with relation to stakeholders, that goes well beyond the educational system as well.
In all sectors.
Yeah, all sectors, which is, awesome to hear you say.
Yeah.
Fast forwarding back to the building of Marian, and you sort of starting from the bottom and then making it what it is today. So many people praise you for your leadership and, the values you instill in people and all these amazing things that a principal and a leader should have. But I don't think enough people praise you for, just your administrative prowess and how you sort of run the school over the years. Because, to run a school like that with so many moving parts, so many assets, it must be like a nightmare, not for you now, but initially it's a lot. And I say this because people who don't know Marian don't understand the amount of resources that the school has in relation to, in my opinion, any other institution again. As a matter of fact, just to as a quick side note, I brought my family there from the US the other day with their kids. We didn't get to see you, but I said, you guys gotta come and see my school, right? Because I'm so proud. And we went through all the halls, primary, secondary. I took them to all the labs, the library, the IT department, food and nutrition. These are parts of the facility that so many people are not able to have that exposure and experience to kids growing up. And it was such an instrumental part of my development. How did you manage all of that? I mean, that's a lot to sort of deal with, and not only deal with, but keep in the pristine condition that you've managed to keep it in.
Well, first of all, in the whole management, in doing these things in stages, because you may realize we now have a sixth form, and we didn't begin with a sixth form. So it was like a growth, moving small and growing incrementally. And I think, it was just a little bit more, and so you keep moving with that, and getting there with the step, the process. So it didn't seem so monumental. Only in retrospect, when you step back and you look at it. Because I was not totally prepared that I wanted to have a sixth form. And it's about 6 years ago, somewhere there. Anyway, students were always going to other schools for sixth form, and they would return and say, I wish you had a sixth form. I wish you had a sixth form. And so at one of our family days, the fun day, a group of past students who were in sixth forms in other institutions came, and, they were having a good time chatting around. And then they said, sister, if you had a sixth form, we'd come back right now. By that time, I'd gotten a new vice principal for the secondary department. And I said, come and meet the new vice principal and tell her what you just said. And they told her. And she smiled. And she said, later on, she said to me, why not? And I said, if I have to now invest time in building a sixth form, it's not just a building. It's all that goes with making a sixth form as it ought to be. You realize you would need to take a far more active role in the secondary and lead it. Now, she had been a retired principal, so I didn't have any fear that she would be able to do that. And she said yes. So having said that, we launched into getting a plan. I spoke with the board of directors. They're always there, very helpful, in guiding. So I spoke, and they asked me what I needed. So normally you do a sketch on a paper and say, this is what we would need, and what you would do. Now, the only location is that old wooden building.
Yeah.
So we said, look, we're going to put it exactly in the spot. And we accommodated a beautiful little chapel, a guidance counselor's room, which we had on that wooden building, a lovely, beautiful library for the sixth formers, air-conditioned, internet access, they just have to plug in, etc. A conference room, maintenance room, storage room, ancillary staff room, which is better than many staff rooms, maybe more staff rooms, not to be disrespectful in Guyana.
Yeah.
Very nice for our ancillary staff room, etc. And bathroom facilities for people coming in, guests and, parents visiting. Then, of course, on the top floor, all our classrooms, etc. And making them modern, each has its own wireless projector, etc., inside the room. So it took time to put it together and get it. Do you know, in 1 year we had that building up and running.
No way. 1 year?
Yep. 1 year. Began August, knocking down the old building, and we occupied it the following year, September.
What impresses me even more than that is that how seamlessly it falls into the rest of the school. It's almost like you took a Lego part of the school and then attached it on.
It's true.
True.
It's true. Because I remember quite well when the architect came and he was talking about a wider corridor. Mm-hmm. And the chairman of the board and I were together. We met with him the architect, and the architect said, "What do you think we need?" No, the chairman. "What do you think we need? A driveway?" I remember still I laugh. "You think we need a driveway for a corridor? The students walking on one side and the other walking on the left, one on the right.
Yeah.
So, there's no reason for them to collide." So hence that, neat connections.
Yeah.
And what is beautiful about that now, we can walk from primary library straight around to,
It's so seamless.
yes.
It is so seamless. Was the architect the same guy who designed the original?
No,
No.
no, not the same architect at all. For purpose of history, McDavid did the first design,
Mm-hmm.
and Ian McDavid.
Okay.
And the second design was done by Dave Dudnot. He, at the time, was working with Rodriguez. Rodriguez no longer he's retired from it.
Okay.
So he was there, and he supervised the building in terms of being the architect and what he designed to ensure that it a young architect.
Just to rewind a little bit, back to when you arrived at the school, and then, well, so you're the school, what it is today. You said you did it bit by bit. So I'm assuming it was never this one grandiose vision. You just kept.
No, there was a big plan.
There was a big plan.
And from the big plan, we did it in stages.
Okay, got you. And how long did that take?
Secondary, only today I looked at a date because we were planning some quiz questions.
Okay.
Maybe 4 years,
Okay.
max, about 4 years.
To that point, I would just want to ask you, because it's so well done. And this is almost an infrastructure kind of question. How did you sort of manage to keep it on the track? Because I know, like in Guyana, when you take on big projects, and you're dealing with contractors and stuff, things just have a way of, going awry sometimes.
Well,
How did you manage that?
We did have some obstacles, huh?
Okay.
But the first person who took on the, I'm not talking about a foreman, but an oversight, was Joe Swain. Joe Swain had his 2 daughters in school. So he had an interest. So he was also on the site. Now, if anybody knows about a person called Jackie Da Silva, she was a chair of that whole committee, initial committee, and then became the first chairperson of the board. He could have to deal with some religious sisters who, when I want this building or this to meet timeline, it has to be there. Mr. McDavid, I can't remember if his daughter was there initially. She came afterwards. She also came through the school. So we also had people around us who had direct interest,
Yeah.
And McDavid, it was his architect for design, so of course he had the overall supervision of it. So we did have interested persons who wanted to see this thing finished and completed, and keep those frequent meetings with contractor and builders, weekly meetings, showing timeline, following the graph. This is completed, because all that timeline is planned in any construction site. So you're making sure you're keeping those people on target.
It seems like a lot of the, based on the conversation we've had so far, that a lot of the success of the school is due to the fact that there are so many stakeholders involved, and you're able to harness all of that, and you guys sort of do it together. It's an interesting, very inspiring to hear that, because that's how I guess the best projects get done.
Yes, it's people together and working as a team, having the common goal, the same vision, and you're moving together.
And how would you say that you sort of keep people to stay on with one vision? I mean, is there? I'm sure at times there's, with all the stakeholders involved, there's difference of opinion on many
Of
things.
course, there will always be difference of opinion, but essentially, when you have the same vision, sometimes there will be difference in terms of the way to get to the destination. People may see it differently. But dialogue is very important, and respect for each other.
Yeah.
If I give you, as takeaway from the building, give you a simple example. You may laugh at what I said at the time. When we were planning the first fair for the school, I had just all these men around me to assist with the planning. And I said, I would like to use chits, no cash. The only cash must go to the chit booths. Everything you purchase must be with chits. One of the men said, that will never work here. You don't know these men. When they go to the bar and stand up there, you think they want to have to go buy chits? So he's, putting down the idea. And I said, really? Well, let's try it. If it fails, call me a jackass. Well, those men roared. And I think I set them at ease. After that, everybody was willing to go with chits. And later on in Guyana, I saw many persons giving me a phone call to ask me who printed the chits or how we go about handling the chits. Yep, chits is what people use now.
Yeah.
So something as simple as that. But yeah, you have a difference, but you dialogue it. You might end up with a laugh, but so the loss will be on me right now, and I'll take responsibility. That's what I basically was saying to them.
Yeah, I guess it's all about your communication and how you handle yourself. I mean, yeah, that's hilarious.
But actually, they could not have called me a jackass. They would have to call me a genius. That was the expression I used at the time.
I don't think, for the record, I don't think anybody would ever dare call you that. No, that is too funny. So just to get back to the institution that is Marian Academy, one of the many things that I recall, and I want to just relate all of my personal experiences when I ask these questions, because I think people should know this. I remember being at Marian, and just the fact that there were so many ways of, because people think, Catholic school, disciplined, strict, and to some degree, there was discipline, definitely in the best way. There was strict in the best way, but there were so many opportunities to express yourself through different mediums. There was debate, spelling bee, the making of the crib competition, so many extracurriculars. The fact that we did mass, had concerts, and we did this as like a family, and I really thought that, I remember being in school, and I always tell people my experience is like, I was in school and I would always be upset when the weekend came, because that was 2 days I had to leave this place that everybody I loved was there, that all the things I loved and made me feel whole was there.
Did I know that I'd bring you in on Saturdays?
You might have had a better student. But no, and I think that's what Marian does so well, is just give kids this well-rounded education. What is your philosophy with, what a child should leave because academics is obviously a priority for most schools, but what other values? We spoke briefly about it in the beginning, but what other values what makes a successful graduate of Marian, in your opinion?
Aside from the academics, we'd want to know that they're functional in society. They can relate well with people, communication is important. How you dialogue if you have a problem, how you sort it out. Our big thing on peace, every year we celebrate World Peace Day. We have the first peace pole in the country. That's right in the center in the school. Right now, if you come and look in front of the office, you will see another path to peace, how to solve conflicts. So you're going out in their society and you need to have those skills. So those are some skills you need with your academics. Then you also need, we'd want to see our students with the values I referred to early on. The value of honesty, integrity. If you didn't have integrity, who are you? You're not a person of your word. You can't be trusted. No. You need to have integrity. Who I see, what I hear is really who you are. And we usually have a simple little definition for integrity. No dictionary meaning, simply. When you do the right thing and no one is watching you, that's integrity for me. Honesty, truthfulness, all tie up with integrity, you know. Compassion, care for the other. So like bullyism and so on, I have zero tolerance for bullyism. You can't bully your way around and think that your heavyweight is going to get you places anywhere. While at the front of the line, no. You just came out, get back to the back of the line, or wherever you ought to have been. So those are some of the values that I really think would fit any human being coming out of Marian, to really, and respecting others, respecting individuals. Doesn't matter what your background is, your financial status, at all. And that is why a part of our program is to have our children go into homes for the elderly or children or whatever you want, do some service to know what it is to serve. And let me say, lastly, respect for creation. Respect for creation. Integrity of creation. Justice, peace, and integrity of creation. And you cannot have peace without justice. So all of those things I've just mentioned are what we're trying to work towards in order to produce worthwhile citizens in our country, and that they can come out and live the good life.
Yeah. You know, you being the head of the school, you know, you can only deal with so much from a macro level, you know, and I assume that the people you employ, they must really have to fit the values and the things you find important with regards to teaching. You know, there's so many subjects that are taught at Marian. You know, when you're hiring people, what are you looking for in leaders? Like, what kind of like teaching approach do you look for, and what does sort of Marian's take on what a teacher should be like? What is that like?
A teacher, first and foremost, must be very understanding and open to learning. You can't come knowing everything. If you come with this haughty idea that you know it all and you're not open to learning. Because no matter where you go, you can learn something new. And you can learn from the smallest child. Humility, very important. Aside from the competence, the qualification, professionalism, you know, we want to have our trained teachers so they understand the psychology of how to deal with the children at their levels. And they must be able to exercise compassion. If I see you being unkind to the children, your time around is limited. Because I'm going to talk with you. I'm going to talk with you. I'm going to give you an opportunity. But you need to be kind to them because they are going to practice the same values that we are expecting to see them with. And if you can't model the values that I just spoke about, but I'm not going to know that when I'm employing you. I will ask you about you. I will put you in situations. I'll ask you to say how you might deal with this or address that. So in all that process, some of those questions are bound to come up.
Have you been happy for the most part with the teachers that have run through Marian?
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of them have stayed on for years.
I've had cases where, bye-bye.
Yeah. You know what's really funny? I one time was speaking to a past teacher who spent a long time with Marian. And we're talking about teaching and how the educational system could be and what he would do. And I said, you know, if there's one thing, you had total free reign to set up an educational system and run it in Guyana, what would you do? And he said, you know, I would want to do something where I could compete with Sister Marie.
Well, quite a compliment.
Yeah, no, I know. I was stunned. I was like, wow, that's the ultimate compliment, you know? And it just reaffirmed how you know, everyone feels about the institution and the value there. But, you know, 25, 30 plus years of being in this position. But one question I'm curious to know is that how have you seen the change in students from when you started to now? Because I say this this is kind of like a sociological kind of question, because you know the world is changing so fast. You know, even what they had in my day is incomparable to today. So, you know, what would you say is like some of the major changes that you've seen over the years?
Well, definitely there is an evolution.
Yeah.
How society views things, how parents view things. And let's say the amount of distractions that children currently have didn't exist then.
Yeah.
I do not know why parents feel that they need to equip, to use find a better word, to equip their children with all of these gadgets, devices, which in itself is good if the child is responsible. If a child is responsible, a cell phone. But I also say, what is good? What is wrong with saying to a child, I will collect you at 2:30, and the child is expected to be at that waiting area at 2:30? Rather, you say to the child, call me when you're ready. What's that freedom for? Where is your responsibility at parenting to teach your child some expectation. This is a value. I give my word, I'm going to be there for 2:30. Expect me. You're teaching the child trust and a sense of assurance. And when I give my word, I'll keep it. Many parents do that. And they will call into the office and say, please tell Peter Stewart, or let Peter Stewart, whoever, know that I'm running a little late, but I'll be there. And we have parents like those. But they're generally speaking about the evolution. We see this, shifting in. And let's say a child is misusing a cell phone, and I just use that as an example. The phone is taken away because the child may have been cautioned before. This may be the third time. So you take the phone for the child's own good, because it's a distraction. You put it away, and the parent will come in fury. So you have that extreme where another parent will say, I did tell Peter to leave the phone at home. Sister, keep it as long as you'd like to. You have that kind of variety. But so we are in this state of this freedom, and the lack of understanding that a child may not be responsible enough. And you have to look at the maturity of the child.
Yeah.
In our dealing. So I think a whole lot has to do with parenting skills.
Do you think that most parents are receptive to, well, you said some are not, but, for the most part, like, they obviously have a big role to play. They can't, if the views are different, they'll essentially be offsetting everything the child is learning in school.
Correct.
But do you think that, like, the parents that you are involved in, like, there's, like, an open line of communication for the most part?
Many times. I give you an example. Only this afternoon, a dad was outside and asked to see me. Sister Shelley hadn't been in the office, so I said, sure, come in. And, I commended him, and he thanked me for letting him know that, my feedback and my opinion of what I thought of him and his role that he was playing. Because how well he explained his concern and measures he had put in place to assist his son. But he was still having certain difficulties, and he was asking me, what did he need to do, or what should he be doing? And I provided some guidelines, and he thanked me. And then, lest he thought I was just talking off my head or to get rid of him or something, I went to Mr. Google. So I Googled up the same question he asked me. Maybe not in his words, but... And I said, I'm going to read something to you. And of the 5 points that were there, I had given him 3. And then I said, I'm reading from Mr. Google. He said, yes, I noted that 3 of the things you suggested that I should do, you just read it to me. I said, simple things. And I will see what happens on Monday. I will speak with, I said Monday, not Friday, I said Monday. I will speak to his teacher and the counselor and see what we can do to assist him. Because I said, what's happening right now is not just his fault.
Yeah.
The adults will have to adjust certain things to help that child. But theory was open, willing, and genuinely wanting to help his son. So you have those parents. Those are the enablers. Those who know that they don't know, and they seek guidance.
Yeah.
I am not an expert on bringing up children per se. I am an educator, but my years of experience and all that I have studied, psychology, etc., I bring that to bear in my job, including pastoral theology.
Yeah.
So all of that I bring to bear on what I do, years of experience, all of that.
And, I'm sure you value the resources Marian has with regards to just guiding children. You have counselors.
Yes.
They teach moral education, religious education.
Correct.
Those are things you can't find in other institutions. So a big part of what you do. And I'm assuming there's no plans to get rid of that. That's
No,
there to stay.
absolutely not. And even in our sixth form now, we have a course called leadership
Okay.
and social teachings.
Okay.
It's not any part of the academic. It's still in formation. Social teachings, so explore so many things in social teaching. With all this new thing for Guyana, the oil and gas, and they are looking at that not just in environmental science per se, but in the whole scheme of things in our society and so on.
Yeah.
To understand its implications, etc. So there's a social teaching and leadership, and I am quite impressed by the students who graduate from sixth form.
Yeah.
I can sit and have a good conversation with them, and they can enlighten me. and that's what we want. That's what we want to see.
You are about to embark on a new chapter of your life, and I'm very sad, but also at the same time very much excited for you. What are you looking forward to the most once you sort of fully, hang your hat up and move on after this year?
To plan my own schedule.
Okay.
I can say yes and no. I will accept to do this or not accept to do this. And I want a good, nice holiday.
Yeah.
You
deserve it.
Maybe a little bit of what we in the religious circle would call sabbatical. To just do a course at leisure. Do something for my own development.
Yeah.
Spend some time doing that. Usually those courses are not certificate courses. They're all about human development. So something to that effect. A holiday, and then to be able to continue assisting the system when I choose, how I choose. I mean, someone asks, to do this or do that, and I'm able to do that. And I'll say, okay, I can afford that time, or yes or no, or so on.
Because we're in a position right now in Guyana where there's massive development happening. There's massive opportunity happening for people across the spectrum. As a matter of fact, I always tell people this is one of the first time in my life where I genuinely feel I can do anything in Guyana. Like I can do anything. I can go and be successful.
Yes.
Because it feels like opportunity is there, regardless of if it happens or not. But, when we look at the children coming through our educational system, what are your feelings about it? Is it of optimism? Are you cynical, or how do you feel about where we're going and, the type of education our Guyanese youth are going to have in the future?
Yeah, I think we will have to visit our, planning for the next 5 years. I think we need to revisit that and the way we are delivering and how we're delivering and what we're delivering. Because subjects that will be necessary for our students to be exposed to really move forward in the development of Guyana. So we'll have to embrace that. So one of the things I would be recommending is get back to the drawing board and look carefully at what we're offering in the school. And there are some things we'll never, divorce from the system. And we've talked about that already. But we have to look at it. Courses there are a lot of courses that sixth form offers, and even CXC, they're always trying to revise and so on. So we have to look at that too, and look at Guyana's need in particular too. You may say, why Guyana? Well, they must fit into the world. But I really believe that we need to develop strongly the spirit of patriotism and nationalism, that they will want to stay in Guyana. We shouldn't be educating to export. We need to be letting children begin to look inward, as you rightly say, for the numerous opportunities out there, and prepare them for that. So I think overall education needs to be looked at and revised. Not sweep out everything, but revise and improve.
Well, on that note, Sister Marie, again, I can't tell you how much of a treat this was to sit down. I'm so honored to have you in this space. And thank you so much for being here. And more importantly, thank you again for everything you have done and continue to do. And, I speak on behalf of not only all the students of Marian, all the parents, and all the people whose lives you've touched, but thank you so much for the legacy you've created. And, I really hope that this is not the end of your contribution to Guyana on a whole. So I thank you very much for being here.
And I thank you for being here. It was really a wonderful opportunity to sit and have one of my past students have a conversation with me.
Well, we can definitely have a conversation whenever you want.
So thank you very much for this opportunity, and it was a pleasure.